If you're visiting or living in Vietnam, there's something small but really important you should know. Don't rush to ask young people these 4 questions, not because they're taboo, but because sometimes you don't realize what nerve they're hitting. These questions seem so normal, so everyday, so familiar to the older generation. But for young people today, they're not just questions, they're pressure, they're comparison, they're things they've already asked themselves countless times, late at night, sitting alone thinking about their future. And as a Vietnamese person myself, I'll explain and give you perspective on why these questions exist, what they really mean, and why one generation feels so weighed down by what another generation considers completely normal. This video isn't here to tell you you're wrong for asking, and it's not here to say people are right to be annoyed. It's just here to help us understand each other better. First question, when are you getting married? Before we explain the first question, let's talk a bit about Vietnamese culture. Vietnamese society isn't built on the word I, it's built on the word we. The individual isn't the unit of measurement, the family is, the community is. In the West, people say, live for yourself, follow your heart. In Vietnam, people say, live properly, don't let people talk, make your family proud. Properly here means conformity, conforming to family expectations, conforming to social standards, conforming to the path that people consider right. When society is built like this, these questions aren't seen as invasive by the person asking. They're a way to check. Are you on the right track? Are you okay? But the younger generation is living in a different world, one where the concept of the right path isn't as clear anymore. And now we'll explain the question, when are you getting married? For the older generation, marriage wasn't a choice, it was a mandatory milestone. You finish university, you get a job, you work for a few years, then you get married. That's the sequence. Nobody asks why, they only ask when. Marriage equals stability. Stability equals responsibility. Responsibility means you've fallen into line. So when people ask, when are you getting married, they're not really curious about your love life. They're implicitly asking, is your life stable yet? Are you on the right track? Have you become an adult? But young people today don't believe in that formula anymore. They've seen too many unhappy marriages. They've seen people marry because of pressure, then live in regret. And the important thing, economics. Vietnam has low wages, so young people feel enormous pressure about marriage, especially men. The groom's family has to give a betrothal gift to the bride's family. The amount depends on negotiation between both families. Especially gold is considered a good omen. On the wedding day, if the bride wears a lot of gold, it shows that the groom is wealthy, and this brings pride to the groom's family in front of the bride's family. And wedding costs currently range from $5,000 to $10,000 depending on the region. For them, marriage is no longer a milestone to prove you've fallen into line. It's a big decision that needs time, needs certainty. When you ask, when are you getting married? You're unintentionally saying, your time is running out, you're falling behind others, you need to hurry up. That's not encouragement, that's pressure. Second question, when are you having kids? This question usually comes fast, sometimes even faster than the wedding. For the older generation, children weren't just joy, they were continuation. Continuation of the family, the lineage, the meaning of a life. Hidden behind this question is a very deep worry. Who will take care of you when you're old? Who will remember you? Who will light incense for you when you're gone? The older generation grew up in a society without social security, without adequate retirement, without proper nursing homes. Children were their only insurance system, but young people today worry about different things. They worry about climate change. They worry about whether this world is even worth bringing a child into. They worry about money. The cost of raising children keeps rising. In Vietnam, people often say, "Ca mau gao tien," bread and butter, something like that. Do they have enough money to give their child a good life? They no longer think having children is an obligation. They think it's a huge responsibility that not everyone is ready to shoulder. When you ask, when are you having kids? You're unintentionally saying, don't overthink it, just have them and figure it out. But they don't want that. They want to be ready, financially, mentally, in every way. Question number 3, What do you do for work? This isn't just a social question, this is how you determine social standing, and this is also the question that makes Vietnamese men feel most insecure. In Vietnam, your job says a lot about you, the level of respect you receive, the value people assign to you. If you're a doctor, engineer, teacher, or government official, people assume you're stable, you're someone with a future. If you do freelance work, create content, or do art, people look at you with suspicion. Can you eat with that job? Is it stable? But the concept of success has changed. The older generation thinks success is stable job, fixed salary, good benefits, working at a big company. The younger generation thinks success is doing what you love, living meaningfully, having time for yourself, not being a slave to work. They might be YouTubers, designers, baristas, jobs the older generation doesn't consider proper professions, not because they're lazy, but because they've seen too many people follow the stable path and live in dissatisfaction their whole lives. When you ask, "What do you do?" with a judgmental tone, you're unintentionally saying, "Your job isn't good enough, you're not successful." But they think that as long as they can support themselves and they're happy with their choice, they have the right to choose their own path. Question number 4. How much do you make? This is the question that bothers people the most. In many cultures, asking about salary is taboo, but in Vietnam, especially for the older generation, money isn't taboo. It's the ruler for measuring life. Why? Because the older generation lived through poverty. They know the value of every dollar. When they ask, "How much do you make?" they're asking, "Is it enough to live? Is it enough to start a family? Is it enough to take care of your parents?" The person asking isn't always trying to compare. Sometimes they're just trying to understand if your life is sustainable. But for young people, this question carries something much heavier, because wages can barely keep up with the cost of living. Housing prices are impossibly high. Economic pressure keeps growing. Asking, "How much do you make?" becomes a reminder of powerlessness. A reminder that no matter how hard they try, it still doesn't seem like enough. And when you ask this, especially in front of others, you're putting them in a very awkward position. If they tell the truth, they're afraid of being judged. If they don't answer, they're afraid of seeming arrogant. That's not care, that's invasion. Young people in Vietnam, when they visit relatives' homes, friends' homes, or their girlfriend's house, they feel insecure when they receive these questions and they don't want to answer them at all. These 4 questions have one thing in common. They don't come from curiosity. They come from a need for certainty. In a society that's been through war, poverty, instability, asking directly is a way to reduce risk. Privacy is a luxury when survival isn't even certain. The older generation doesn't ask these questions to hurt anyone. They ask because they care. They ask because this is how they make sure you'll be okay. But the younger generation is living in a completely different context. They no longer worry about survival the way the older generation did. They worry about meaning, about mental health, about whether they're living the way they want or living according to others' expectations. When you ask them these questions, you're pulling them back into a value system they're trying to escape, one where a person's worth is measured by marriage, children, career, and money. The older generation grew up during war and poverty. For them, stability was everything: a house, food, a job, a family. The younger generation grew up differently. They're not lacking material things, but they're lacking meaning. They have too many choices, too much information. They see seemingly perfect lives on social media and wonder, am I falling behind? Am I failing? Understanding this doesn't mean you have to accept it. If you're from the older generation, at least now you know why young people feel annoyed. Behind their silence isn't rudeness, it's exhaustion. Maybe instead of asking, "When are you getting married?" ask, "Are you happy?" Instead of asking, "How much do you make?" ask, "Is life treating you well?" These questions still show care, but they don't carry pressure. And if you're young, understand that they're not asking to hurt you. They're asking because that's how they were taught to care. You can choose to answer or not. You can gently explain, "I know you care, but those questions put pressure on me." Understanding each other doesn't mean agreeing. It just means we stop seeing ourselves as victims or villains and start listening to each other more. So the final question is, should society change to respect privacy more? Or should both sides shift a bit? The older generation learning to ask more gently, the younger generation understanding that behind those questions isn't malice. I hope this video helps you understand why you shouldn't ask these questions, or at least understand how the person being asked feels. Thanks for watching. See you next time.